This case is probably one of the top 5 most brutal in all of Germany's criminal history. It contains graphic details, but that doesn't even begin to describe how horrific this actually was. This crime shocked not only Germany, but the entire world. In March of 1922, deep in the German countryside in a small village called Nuremberg, there lived a family of 6 people. They were normal, hard-working people who just wanted to live their lives. Their names were Andreas Gruber, his wife Cecilia, their daughter Victoria, Andreas's mother, grandmother, and 2 hired servants. Life seemed to be treating them well. But then on March 31st, 1922, everything changed forever. In the morning, a neighbor noticed that the gate to the Grubers' farmhouse was open and some tools were lying around nearby. He thought it odd, so he went inside to investigate. He walked into the kitchen where he saw a horrifying sight. There was blood everywhere, on the walls, the ceiling, the furniture, and in the middle of it all was the lifeless body of the matriarch of the family, Cecilia. She had been viciously murdered. The neighbor quickly left to call the police. When they arrived, they found the bodies of the rest of the family. The 2 servants were found lying next to each other in the bedroom with their throats slit. Then they found the body of Andreas Gruber in the livestock stable, also with his throat slit. Finally, in the hayloft above the stable, they found the bodies of Andreas's mother and grandmother. Each of them had been struck multiple times with an axe. But what made the discovery even more gruesome was that the grandmother still had her 2 eyes gouged out. The bodies of the 2 women were later found to have been mutilated as well, with 1 breast cut off each victim. It was clear that the perpetrator or perpetrators had gone crazy and killed everyone in cold blood. But who could have done such a thing? After examining the crime scene, it became clear that the murderer had prepared this attack meticulously. First, he or they had gone to the local tavern and bought a large quantity of beer, enough to kill 6 people. But it wasn't just any beer. It was laced with strychnine, a deadly poison that causes excruciating pain and violent convulsions. The killer or killers had clearly planned to kill the entire family, and then they did something truly evil. After the murders, the killer or killers went to the local church and rang the bell to alert the nearby villagers to come to the farm. When the first responders arrived, they found the disturbing scene we mentioned earlier. Soon, hundreds of people had gathered around the farm, all wanting to get a glimpse of the brutal crime scene. Some people even tried to enter the house, but they were stopped by police. The news of the grisly murders spread like wildfire, reaching every corner of the country and shocking the entire nation. Some people believed that the murders were committed by a group of Russian deserters, while others blamed the Bolsheviks. But as time went on, these theories were disproven, and the case went cold. The police were stumped. They had no leads, and the case seemed to be a dead end. But then, a few months later, a breakthrough came. A man named Lorenz Schlittenbauer confessed to the crime. Schlittenbauer was a former soldier who had served in World War I. He had been wounded in battle and spent several months in a hospital recovering. It was there that he met another patient who shared a disturbing story with him. The man claimed that he and his 4 accomplices had committed the crime in self-defense. They had been hired by the family to do some construction work on the farm, but when they arrived, they found that the family had already hired someone else to do the job. Enraged, they decided to kill the family and take their revenge. But as they were leaving the farm, one of the men slipped and fell, injuring his leg. They had to leave him behind, and he was captured by the police. The man had cut off his own leg to escape, but it was too late. The police recognized him and arrested him. Schlittenbauer led the police to a shallow grave where they found the construction worker's remains. With the evidence against him, Schlittenbauer was convicted of murder and sentenced to life in prison. But as the years passed, his story began to unravel. First, he recanted his confession, claiming that he had been coerced by the police. Then he changed his story, claiming that he was only an accomplice and had not participated in the actual killings. His accomplices were never found, and the case remained a mystery for decades. In 1983, a new investigation was launched, and several suspects were identified. One of them was a man named Joseph, appeared to be a perfect fit for the profile of the killer. He was known to have had a violent past and had been convicted of assault and manslaughter. He had also been in the Army during World War I and had been treated for mental illness. But despite the evidence against him, he was never charged. This was because in 1976, Joseph died in a car accident. Another suspect was a man named Fritz. He had been a soldier in World War I and had been discharged after being wounded. He had then worked as a farmhand and had been known to have had violent tendencies. But Fritz was also ruled out as a suspect after he died in 1945. With the main suspects dead, the case once again went cold. That was until 2009. In October of that year, the German tabloid Bild published a story that sent shockwaves around the world. According to their sources, the real killer of the Hinterkaifeck family was none other than Joseph. Not only that, but he had confessed to the crime before his death in 1976. Apparently, he had bragged about his crimes to his friends, claiming that he had killed the entire family with an axe. He had also confessed to a priest who had tried to help him atone for his sins. The news of the supposed confession led to a media frenzy. Every news outlet in the country was talking about the Hinterkaifeck murders and the possible identity of the killer. The police were forced to come forward and confirm that they were investigating the case once again. But as it turned out, the story in Bild was nothing but a fabrication. There was no new evidence and no new leads. The case was once again dead. End. But wait, there's more. In 2015, a book was published that reignited the debate over who really killed the Hinterkaifeck family. The author claimed that the killer was a man named Carl, who was obsessed with the occult and had been involved in a number of bizarre crimes. He had been a soldier in World War I and had been exposed to some truly horrific things. When he returned home, he became increasingly violent and was eventually declared insane. He was admitted to a mental institution where he died in 1927. But despite his death, the killings continued. In 1925, another family was brutally murdered in a similar way to the Hinterkaifeck family. The killer was never found, and the case was eventually closed. But the author of the 2015 book believes that both families were killed by the same person. So who was really responsible for the Hinterkaifeck murders? To this day, the case remains unsolved, and the mystery continues to baffle investigators and armchair detectives alike. There are many theories and much speculation, but no one knows for sure what really happened on that fateful day in March of 1922. What do you think happened to the Hinterkaifeck family? Let me know your thoughts. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe for more amazing videos.